This episode of Talk Your Exposure, we are joined today by Kayla Davis, who is a former NCAA Division I basketball player that played for Towson University as well as Xavier University. Kayla Davis also put on the Canadian jersey on the U19 circuit for Team Canada, as well as also currently now has her own company, training company, with Up Next Training and works with Dream Chasers Basketball. Tune into this week of Talk Your Exposure on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and wherever you get your podcast from, and enjoy this episode with Kayla Davis. Welcome to another edition of Talk Your Exposure. In today's episode, we have a very special one. As we conclude season number 3, we're very excited to be able to share this episode with everybody that's tuned in and listening and watching. But before we get to introduce our guest of today, I want to introduce and reintroduce our new co-host of Talk Your Exposure podcast. We got Chris Campbell in the building, man. What's going on, my guy?
Oh, I'm doing good, my guy. You know, I'm always a pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to be part of this program. And tell you the truth, I'm excited about the guest we have today. Been looking at some highlights from her, and she's a special, man. It's a good way to start off the season.
Damn right about that. It's a great way to start the new year, 2022. Our guest of today is a former Division I basketball player. She's currently I don't know if she's a coach or if she's a trainer. I don't really know what we want to call her yet, but we definitely want to tap into some different projects with her. We got Kayla Davis in the building. How are you today? And thank you for taking some time to talk to us today.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I think that, like you said, we'll dive into some interesting stuff, and I'll give you an update on what I got going on. So I'm excited.
We can't wait to dive into what you got going on as well and talk about your basketball career too. But before we get into your career, wow, why am I stuttering again? You make me nervous, Kayla. But anyways, we want to start off this show with a game called Would You Rather. Pretty much what's going to happen is I'm going to read a sentence, and obviously prior to that, would you rather something or something? Would you rather be the first woman to coach in the NBA or be the first woman to own an NBA franchise?
I'm going to go ownership.
Why is that?
Well, I think that at this point, like, I'm seeing more coaches in terms of, like Becky Hammond was with the Spurs for a bit. She ended up coming back to the WNBA side, and seeing a lot of like player development coaches and on different NBA teams, but not as many owners, especially like I'm seeing owners in like, I think the MLB and a couple other leagues, but in terms of like NBA, there's some, but like ownership's just different. Ownership is something that lasts for as long as you want it to, right? So coaching, sometimes things change, but I think the ownership, I'm trying to own a house, own my car, own everything, right? I don't want to owe anyone money, but I want to own everything. So yeah.
I like that thought process. I like that thought process. Would you rather be tall but can't dunk but can shoot the hell out of the ball, or would you rather run the floor, be a point guard, athletic, great passer, but you can't shoot?
Okay, so I'm gonna do the second one, because before I even got to college, I rarely shot the three. And when I got to college, I started expanding my range. So I got away with kind of being that second version of being able to run the floor, be athletic, get to, certain places on the floor and create for myself. And the shooting developed a lot later. Actually, once I was injured, I learned how to shoot the ball a little bit better. I always could, but no one really pushed it on me. So yeah.
Your form is butter now. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen the way you shoot. I've seen you get in the gym and work out with Sai as well. So your form is clean. But anyways, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Your percentages too. Would you rather be able to taste your favorite soda every time you drink water, or taste candy every time you eat fruit?
I'm gonna go with. I don't eat a lot of fruit, so I guess I gotta go with the water. I can't even remember the last time. Usually, yeah, I don't really eat fruit. I gotta have a more healthy, balanced diet. So I'd go with the water.
For sure.
But it'd be a little weird if you're working out, but you probably get used to it. You just tasting like Sprite or something, but it's the taste. It's not, I guess, the actual nutritional. We're just saying taste. So
just taste.
Just taste.
Yeah, like get yourself a little soda stream, Get yourself a little soda stream. Last one I got for you over here is, would you rather play in the WNBA or play overseas? And I want to get your take on this one.
So I think from people that I know that have done one or the other, it seems like there's pros and cons to each. And I think one thing is like playing in the WNBA, you're playing like closer to your home. So that is usually the main thing with people overseas. Like it's a grind, like you're there for a long time. If you want to play multiple years, you're spending a lot of time away from family. So it's definitely like people that I know that are still playing. It's like they have to really love the game more so than just being good at it. You have to love and appreciate the grind. So I would love to be able to play in the WNBA just for that like ability for people that I know to have a chance to a little bit easier for them to come see me play and spend some time there. But I know just in general, currently, like a lot of WNBA players do both. They'll play in WNBA, then they'll go overseas because it's just more lucrative in terms of how much money they're bringing in. So I'm a homebody nowadays, so I wouldn't mind definitely having my family and people that I care about have a chance to see me play. I know they've talked about on social media Toronto getting a WNBA team or just throwing out little stuff like that. And I think that'd be crazy. Like I would definitely want to be involved in that in some capacity if that ever does happen, whether it's like front office stuff in the gym. Like that would be at this point now that I hung up my shoes. I teach, I'm at the point where those who can't do anymore, they teach. So if there was ever to be a WNBA franchise in Toronto, hopefully speaking into existence, I'd definitely like to be a part of that. So yeah.
Hey, Drake's already trying to start speaking into existence. He's called up, Adam Silver. He's trying to get it going. He's trying to be something. I don't know exactly how he's going to be part of that, but I mean, shoot, why not? Why not have Kayla Davis as a head coach of the Toronto whatever? I don't even know what we'd be called, but but let's have Kayla Davis as the head coach. So Kayla Davis as the head coach of that. I like that. I want to move on from our game though, and definitely interesting perspectives on what you were talking about with that stuff. But I want to know, you jumping into the coaching side and hearing from a lot of kids. Kids of today, they dream a lot. They also get stuck when trying to accomplish their dream/passion due to resources, bad advice, or lack of support. What's something you'd recommend to these kids to block out so that they can accomplish their dreams?
So it's kind of like redundant, but it's the whole, it's a marathon, it's not a race. And I think with the culture that they're in, that they've grown up in is like immediate gratification through social media, like posting highlight videos and all that stuff. It's all good, but if you're not where you think you should be at a certain point, that doesn't mean that your goal or your dream is done. So the main thing is blocking out the noise is just keeping yourself humble. And usually when I meet kids and I talk to their parents, I can get a good sense like of what their system is. I call it a system because like every family, every team, every group of people has a dynamic, and you hope that every kid that if they're not getting it from their team, their parents or whatever, then I try and be the one that I wouldn't say humbles them, but just understand like the way that I came up was a little bit unconventional, like in terms of what it is now and how kids get recruited. I just did straight AAU and played for the national team, did all that, but I didn't go to a prep school. I didn't go to 12 different tournaments in my AAU career. So the level of exposure is there, which is perfect, but just understanding that that's a gift and a curse depending on how you handle yourself. So I think it's really important just to have real conversations with some of these kids and even having them younger than you would think, because the people are having like top 10, top 25, top 100 for kids that are in like 4th grade. Right. So, and even the landscape of how players can use their name and likeness and understanding that you're a brand, like all that stuff was like, I learned it later. And I think the earlier, the better. So it's just to reiterate, it's kind of two things. It's understanding that like as a basketball player, you are a product in some ways. And especially as you get further into like your career, like play collegiate, all that stuff, like you are a player that is aiding a program. So what you bring skill wise is one thing, but also how you make other people feel, how you handle yourself, like it goes hand in hand. So the work ethic has to be there, but then also the understanding of almost being a businessman or a businesswoman from a young age. So that is like the two things. If you keep it simple, like work on your craft and understand people and how to navigate that, then hopefully all the other outside stuff, you have good people in your corner and you can just kind of stay, like keep your head down and keep moving. So.
I want to touch up on one thing that you actually mentioned. Then we're on to Chris. But one thing I want to touch up on is how you talked about you never went to a prep school. You know, you stayed local in Canada. You stayed here and did what you had to do in order to be able to get where you got to. You played AU basketball. You played T Canada, like you mentioned before. The one thing for me that I think is actually ruining today's youth game and you ruining the game for today, A, the media, B, how many prep schools are out of nowhere in Canada. I don't know how there's a million prep schools all of a sudden, and a lot of them lack the proper resources to be able to get these kids to the next level. And the third as well is that teams don't stay loyal to any AU program, or players don't stay loyal to AU programs. They jump from team to team to team to team to team, which makes it difficult for a coach to sell because you're not always going to be the guy on some team or the girl on some team. And if you're not that A player that's going to be on, you know, let's say they play for RWI, then you go play for Motion afterwards or Dream Chase or whatever. If you play on that one team and you're an RWI guy who goes to another program, who's to say that coach is going to be able to help you, you know, get to that next level that the same coach will be able to help you with? So my question to you is, what would you say to kids that A, jump ship, B, rely on prep programs, and C, you know, I guess also rely on social media to get them to the next level?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of like I can kind of bring it back to when LeBron was announcing his decision and he made it like a whole big thing when he went to Miami, right? And I don't want to say that was the catalyst, but that was kind of like the media attention to people making moves and then debates on how really great can he be if he teams up with two other great players, super teams, all that stuff. It's always at this point, and like even with Kevin Durant, like going to Golden State, like it's not going to change in terms of I think people are still going to do it, but just it's one of those things where it makes you sound like an old head, but you're just talking about like old school values, right? Like being loyal, staying committed to things that you say you're going to do and things like that is important. But like I think we're also in a culture where kids understand that they're able to usually do that stuff without any repercussions in terms of navigating the different teams. So it again kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's kind of a combination of hoping that these kids have people in their corner that will instill those values so they feel like when they're making decisions that they don't take them lightly. Me personally, I have a very I played for the very first team I ever played for. I grew up playing I grew up in like North York. So I went to Maple Leaf Public School. First time I ever touched basketball, third grade. Interesting story, but I'm not going to go into that. By the time I moved to Brampton in like the next year, I played for the Brampton Blue Devils. And that was like an organization I stayed with. When I outgrew that, I went to Oakville, played for Oakville for a couple of years, and then came back and played for Brampton all the way up until I left. So like I am naturally the type of person where I can see like sometimes if you're in a position where honestly your level of growth is being impeded, then that's different. If you're going somewhere only because playing time and things like that, then I think it's reassessing, like, do you think that you can end up getting playing time on this team? Or do you have a coach that's going to keep it real with you and be like, hey, there's just people that are, you know, right now in front of you that are giving me a little bit more than what you are at this point? Then you have two choices. You can be like, hey, I want to prove that I can, you know, eventually be on this team, or I can go somewhere else and see what that looks like. And it's tough because I said like it started kind of like with that in terms of people broadcasting where they're going to go and all that. So it's hard to give advice because I think at this point kids are going to keep on moving. They're going to keep on going where they think best serves them. I think the last year, or even probably this year, was one of the biggest transfer portals for like college kids, basketball, I think football. My fiance was telling me. So like now more than ever, they're like, nah, I'm not. Nope, I'm moving on, right? So sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, it's really going back to the old school principles of like the same way we admire Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, like those people that made it work in those situations. It's just becoming a little bit out of style, but it just takes, you know, some people like the right coach, like someone that instills like loyalty and a community and understanding and a winning attitude. I think you're less likely, but you're always going to have players and parents that are going to say, hey, my kid's not playing, we'll go somewhere else. And it's unfortunate. And that's why I think even me personally, I'm a little bit hesitant to get into the youth coaching because it's just different. It's different when there's so many moving factors. So I know it's kind of a long-ended answer and it wasn't really an answer in itself, but it's just kind of making an adjustment now that some of these kids are taking control of their future progress, which isn't bad, but you just hope that they have the right people behind them that are making them understand that you can, like if you have a job, you don't like your job, you can always quit. But like the process of figuring out what best suits you, sometimes the grass isn't always greener.
I like that. I like what you said there. The old school values is something that I think about all the time. You know, I think that's really one of the key things. You said a lot of good points there, but that's one thing that I think we lost. And I'm trying to figure out how to even, you know, bring that onto kids and have kids understand the value of that old school. This, all right, you know, go into a system, try to work the system. If you're growing every year, then stick with it. If you're not growing every year, then understand making the moves. But everyone's so quick to jump on the hype, that social media hype. So that's a very good question, and I love your response to that. I think I'm gonna use that old school value still. But moving into some other things that I'm thinking about, we talked about dreams earlier. You know, about 10 years ago, when we thought about WNBA or just women overall, dunking the basketball was not something that you saw in the repertoire or even seen consistently. So the last 10 years has changed a lot. Looking at what Lisa Leslie, Candace Parker, all these people brought to the game, and now seeing dunking more consistently. You know, how do you feel about that?
It is a testament to just how, as we go on in time, like the level of training I think women are getting, and like when it comes to developing their body. So being able to work with people that understand biomechanics and understanding how to get them stronger at a younger age. And some of the people that I'm seeing, most of the time they're going to prep schools or just have access to somebody that is teaching them how to use their body correctly. And that is, like, I think immediately just showing in the ability for a lot of these young women to dunk the ball. And to me, I think I just saw it recently. It's an old clip. She's at Stanford right now. I forget her name, which is bad, but like the girl threw an oop, like underhand oop. She grabbed it and dunked it. And that to me is like, that's different. That's not like a rim grazer. That's like some real, I can really see like how it's just going to continue to grow from Lisa Leslie, one of my former teammates, Madison Blackwell, her mom, Georgianne Blackwell. She went to West Virginia. She was one of the first few women to dunk as well. So like, it's just, you take that and then you go from now, and then you're just hoping that things continue to progress. And I think they will. I don't know how. I don't know if we're gonna get like putting it behind your back, boom, and then like full, but we'll see. At this point in 2022, we don't know. Maybe
10 years ago, we didn't see it so much. Yeah, you don't know. I like your response. Good question right there. And you know, for a long time, WNBA has been looked down, and now we're seeing a lot more support from NBA players. What do you feel the directions going to be next 5 years for WNBA? Especially with all the NBA players backing up, supporting it, going to games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think recently I saw that the numbers, like ratings, all those numbers are up, and they've been like from the past few years. These are like the highest in the past couple of years that they've been in a while. So for me personally, I think that the projection is good. And now like players are outspoken. They use social media. There's players on there. It helps that some of them, you know, really utilize their social media platforms. So they use TikTok, they use Instagram, they use all those different things to help promote themselves, but in return, they're also promoting the game, right? Yeah. So I think that the attention always comes from I think making it seem like me, you know, all you guys, like making sure that, hey, if I want to buy a jersey, maybe this year I buy a WNBA jersey. Like there's no one to tell you that that's not cool, and you can make it cool. Like you can be a guy and get you any, like I like Diana Taurasi. She's a goat in my eyes. Like getting a jersey and rocking that, and they came out with some new jerseys, like marketing and talking about having a team in Toronto. I feel like if we had a team in Toronto, I have a strong feeling that we'd actually embrace it pretty well. I think the basketball community would, in terms of viewership and having fans in the stands, like depending obviously with COVID and all that, but I think we'd actually embrace it really well. So I think it's on obviously the WNBA to continue to market and do what they're doing, but also I think it doesn't take long for something to become popular. Yeah. So if all of a sudden if all of a sudden players, high school players, NBA guys are walking around wearing like those orange hoodies, or like that's fashion, right? If things look good, fashion, that brings back viewership. And then we talk about just continuing to grow. So I think they have the right idea, and it's going to just continue to expand. And now obviously with the added entertainment value of seeing some of the potential women that are going to be participating, being able to dunk, I think it's a good time. It started in, I think, 1995. So it's still a pretty young league, but in general, what I'm seeing now, it just gives me a lot of promise in terms of how much more it's going to continue to grow. So
I like the good answer again. It's been difficult. People don't know how the NBA, some people don't understand how the WNBA draft works. And so right now we have 3 rounds of 12 picks every 3 rounds, so 36 in total. And knowing that the 24 of those are not guaranteed spots, how do you see that's going to look right now for later on for expansion for WNBA if we want to?
Yeah, it's tough because I've known people that have gotten drafted and then like they go through camp and then they don't end up making the final roster. And to me, it's just like a concept that doesn't really, not in a lot of pro sports, you see someone get drafted, not end up being on the final roster when, opening day hits. So it's unconventional, but usually I think I'm not too knowledgeable on the situation, but I think it usually has to do with money and cap space. And I know a lot of the players, like recently I've heard players or maybe just people that are familiar with the WNBA environment say like coaches get paid X amount, but the players are lacking or roster space or expansion. So there might be a little bit of instability in terms of who's really bringing in money when it comes to the hierarchy, right? The owners, the coaches, and things like that. So it could be a combination of increasing marketing and sales. Like that's it. That's a no-brainer. But figuring out if there's a different system within what they're doing already now that allows them more flexibility. So expansion and having more roster spots is actually possibility, because of right now, I think their salary cap just only allows a certain amount of players, a certain amount of salaries to reach their, I guess, I would say that would probably be the only thing that I think that would, like, a restructure of what they're possibly doing to see if they can incorporate an expansion, or figuring out what other ways they can bring in revenue other than obviously sales, like from merchandise, and getting more people to be involved in it. And even with the All-Star games, like finding ways to merge, do things within, they already do things with the NBA, but just really trying to be creative. And I wish I had more ideas, to be honest, but
you said a lot for you now.
yeah. I just remember back in high school, less here in Canada, but when I'd go to the States, it would be like the girls game would be before the guys. So if you want to watch the guys game, you're gonna have to show up regardless. Like I did a couple All-Star games. I played in the All Canada Classic a long time ago in the ACC, it was called at the time. And we played before the guys, but like the guys playing after us were some real like hoopers. So like it was a celebration of everything, but also in a way making sure that the underserved market was still able to get their props. So I think there's ways that we can continue to navigate it. And you got my brain going a bit. So I think I'm going to even brainstorm. I don't have any contacts with WNBA. I'm not going to be calling nobody up, but I'm interested to try and figure out, because to me it is growing, but what can we do if it's growing is one thing, but what can we do to make sure that some of these really good players are having an opportunity as well?
Her contract. Give her a contract. She needs to be on the board of WNBA. Give her a contract.
Look, she's already thinking executive, and she don't got the job yet. So yeah, we gotta get you that
businesswoman mindset. I
love that.
Yeah.
Good. Well, that being said, WNBA was the first to stand up as a first-class organization, and when it came to the Black Lives Matter movement, they're one of the first to really talk about it. From Breonna Taylor, George Floyd passing away, all those things happening. And when the season started, they wore T-shirts and knelt down for the national anthem. And they really presented themselves to show up against the injustice of racial injustice in America. During these times, were you feeling Like, how are you feeling about the support towards the WNBA?
So I think they were one of the first leagues that weren't punishing players or fining players. And I think that immediately is an example of setting a precedent where there is no repercussion for freedom of speech, and especially in a way where the purpose that we're talking about is it's not an issue that is hard to tell. Like people innocent, like people that are being killed is a situation where if you want to stand up for that, there's no real way for you to kind of figure that doesn't make sense. So other leagues that were deciding that kneeling was, you know, not conventional or disrespectful, or you couldn't wear t-shirts, you couldn't do all that stuff. Like for me, the WNBA was saying, like, we are going to let our players be able to do that. And I think that was a moment where I was proud to, you know, even see that out of all of the leagues that were having issues with that, like, of course, like the WNBA was going to be the one to try and get it right. So was happy to see players be outspoken, was happy to see their ability to feel like strong and confident to represent in the games, before games and all that. And I think it was a message that needed to be said, and it brought more attention to the league because it was like, hey, look at them, they're doing it and they're okay. So NFL, NBA, what's your problem? Like, what is the, obviously that's a whole deeply seated other issue, but just in general, like, I think it set the right precedent. So I was happy with that. Yeah.
They did set it. Women always set the tone, right?
Yeah, I think we try. And then, you know, what ends up happening is it's usually not necessarily not taken seriously at first, but sometimes it takes the right attention and the right kind of guiding it into the limelight for people to really, really see it. So that was a situation where I think it was positive what they did.
Wow.
You know,
Wow. Anyways,
you talk for like 15 minutes, and as soon as you talk, you clear your throat. Like that's just
hey
bad.
man, I haven't said a word. I let my guy talk. I let you guys both have the floor. I'm chilling. I don't have any water by me. I don't have nothing. I actually have a cookie from Starbucks. That's why I guess, you know, I haven't been able to eat or anything this morning. But anyways, off from my clearing of my throat for a second. You know, I want to jump off from the WNBA for a second. You know, I also want to talk about your time playing for Team Canada. Talk to us about the process of making Team Canada.
Ooh, good story. So first time I was invited to go to a tryout. So usually it's an invite type of thing. But before that, I played for Team Ontario when I was like 13, 8th grade. So that is, to be honest, I think it's kind of like a feeder program. So like if you play for your provincial team, they're going to kind of keep an eye on you to see if you could potentially later play for the national team. But being from the GTA, like they invite people from Alberta, from like Winnipeg, like all over, like depending on like how good these people are, they can come from anywhere from Canada. So me and one of my teammates, Shay Colley, we played on the same team for Brampton. We were both invited. And at the time there was like the roster that was playing, that was cadet. So I think that's like 16, U16. I was kind of tasked like to beat the point guard that was in front of me that played that year before. So like when I was brought into that situation, it took a long time for me personally to get to that point because my personality and the way I carry myself sometimes can be not necessarily off-putting, but as a young kid, I was mostly like show up, do what I got to do, and not really hee hee ha ha, like making coaches feel super good, like, oh, she's so great. I'm like straight business. So I learned later, like, and it was, some of it came from being shy, and then the other just came from, I know I'm good at this, so let me just stick to what I'm good at.
You shy? No, not you. Not Kayla Davis.
So it's so funny because people that didn't know me, like high school, like all that, like most of the time I was a like when spoken to individual, but I grew into a lot of things later, like when I went to college and etc. But long story short, they thought, like, I think the higher uppers, a part of the organization, like Team Canada, thought I was very skilled because I worked at my craft. So like we're doing drills and stuff, and it's not like everything they're asking me to do I can like do, but it was like they were unsure. Probably as a point guard, you got to be vocal, you got to be a leader, and etc. So I really had to go out there on some, no one in this gym is going to tell me I'm not able to make this team because the way I play, like I really went in like I'm getting a spot on this team. And I did. The first year we went to Amsterdam. We played in a FIBA World Championship. We won a bronze medal. Played Team USA, and that Team USA was like Breonna Stewart, Mariah Jefferson, like people that are in the WNBA now that are like doing really well. Diamond DeShields, another girl named Kayla Davis, Antonio Davis's daughter. So like that was an experience where, you know, one day you're playing Brazil, next day you're playing Japan, next day you're playing the United States. When we played in that bronze medal game, it was probably like the closest to like you're playing technically like that's the vibe when you're playing overseas, like the horns and all the stuff there in the crowd, like super loud. That was the first game I think I ever played because, you know, women's basketball, we're not packing out stadiums, but it was like a smaller venue where I couldn't hear the coach. I couldn't hear anything. So that was a great experience. The second year, interestingly enough, I wasn't a part of the first round of tryouts, but when someone got hurt, they brought me in as an alternate. And at first, like, I was like, I'm not trying to go. Like, if you want me to be on the team, I would have been there. And then a coach that I was close with, he was like, you know what, you should just do it. You should just, you know, go there and see what it's about. So I went in with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. But again, I'm the type of person where I let my game speak. And it was another situation where I came in, and if there was, I want to say maybe anywhere between 30 to 40, or maybe it was 20 to 30. There's not a whole bunch of people there, but there's a decent amount. And there's people there that have been there. I came to camp probably 3 or 4 days late. And then by the time it was done, I was on the roster. And then that time we went to Lithuania. And that was the year before I went to college. So we played in Lithuania. We did exhibition games in France and Belgium. Went to the Canary Islands. So playing for Team Canada, I went to a whole bunch of places. I represented my country. I accomplished something by being an underdog kind of, and not really being somebody that they could have had like maybe an asterisk next to my name, but like, hey, let's see. But I proved and was able to make that final roster. So it was a situation where I started, like what I said before, pairing being a good basketball player with also understanding how people work and learning how to be in a room with people and feel comfortable with my voice and say things and just represent, you know, myself correctly. So that was an important part in my journey and development because I learned a lot. But that was kind of the path. It was a little bit unconventional, like I said, because I don't think I was always meant to be there. But when I got the opportunity and I like showed like what I could do, I proved that I was meant to be in that room. So for me, it was a great accomplishment, and I was able to feel happy with when my time was done, like what I accomplished. So yeah.
Big of yourself on making Team Canada, because not many people can wear, you know, national colors and can wear, you know, can say that they played for that team. So big of yourself on that. But, you know, one question I want to ask you though, and then we're back to Chris again. Chris has a big script today. Chris has a big script. But
be prepared. Yeah.
I need to get some water, because when I come back on, I don't want to have to clear my throat again. But anyways, this is a big question, and I feel like for me, I would have a moment. What was the moment like for you when you got your Team Canada jersey and you got to put it on for the very, very first time?
So when I got that jersey, I was familiar with, there was a point guard that wore the same number 5, that was like kind of similar height as me. The previous national team coach, when I met her, she thought I had a lot of qualities that were similar to her. And when I put that jersey on, I feel like it wasn't until we actually were like on the court standing there for the national anthem where I was like, wow, this is different. Like you play games and stuff, but like being there and like depending on from the home or the away team, whatever, sometimes the other team's national anthems first. But once you like hear the national anthem, you have your jersey on, you're standing most of the time like with your arms, like with your teammates and stuff. It was like it was one of those moments where I was like, wow, like I actually did it. And sometimes you go through life and you don't like, you accomplish stuff and you don't have moments like where you're like, wow, I did it. But for me, like one of the first games we played, and just being in an atmosphere where you play in high school gyms and all that, but playing in like a FIBA style gym, hearing the national anthem, having that jersey on, that was a big moment. But even before I even got out on the floor and was in the locker room, like you have your warm up on, and I like went to walk by the mirror, and then I double take, and I was like, All right, I look good. I look good. I look good. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. So yeah, it was. I actually recently got for Christmas. My parents just framed some of the jerseys. They're in my basement, but that's something that like I'll when I move into a house, I'll have that up and always have like good memories and feel happy about. So yeah.
I like. Well, let's go back because you talked about that transition. Team Canada and high school. You're coming out of high school now. You ranked 38th in the world at your position. 38th in the world at your position, which is like crazy. You must have had a ton of offers. Can you give us a couple ideas who gave you offers?
So when I was coming up, I think the main thing was AAU basketball. And I went to this one tournament in Georgia and performed really well. And from then it was like a situation where I'd come home and my phone would just be like coaches calling, leaving voicemails and stuff. And I would be this goes back to me being shy, like nervous. Like back then I would sweat on the phone. Like I'd be talking and just be nervous, like sweat dripping down, like just like super anxious. But when it came down to it, I went on one visit, and the one school I went to visit was a school I committed to. I talked to a lot of schools. A lot of them at the time were in the A10 conference. So like I think some of the conferences have moved around, but I knew when I spoke to Xavier that before I knew they were going to the Big East Conference, which was a plus. The coach there was a point guard that played. She actually flew down. That was a couple coaches did, but she actually flew down I went to DeVille. She flew down from Cincinnati and came and watched me practice. And we talked for a bit, and she like gave me the understanding where she saw my game and I had to look up this because before I got there, they did write-ups, and she called me like the consummate point guard. And I was like, what the heck does that mean? And it's like an all embodying, like I can do it all type of thing. So I felt immediately that there was a connection there. And I went and visited the campus. To this day, like every time I go back, it has good memories because of the people I met and the stadium. I wanted to play in a nice big stadium. I wanted to feel like when I made that next step, I got there. So I spoke to a lot of schools throughout the time, but when it came to the ones that offered me, Xavier, when I went on that visit, I knew that was where I wanted to be. And I think looking back, I probably would have still made the same decision, even though things were interesting, to say the least, during my career there. But like the feeling going into it, that was exactly, I couldn't have asked for anything like more positive that I felt from the coaching staff, and just I felt welcomed, and my parents also liked it as well.
One thing I do want to say is obviously the colors that you chose on Xavier are, come on, man, like that's obvious. Brampton Blue Devils, DY, like you are a blue and white girl. Clearly, you clearly like blue and white.
Oh,
that's obvious.
For sure, for sure.
I feel like subconsciously got you.
Yeah, I haven't even really made that connection from like the first Blue Devil uniform was definitely that like navy and that white, and then
you know what I'm saying. Yeah, you were bound to go to Xavier for that reason, not because of anything else, but you were bound to go to Xavier because of the blue and white.
It's also one of those kind of team colors that you can kind of wear and get away with without feeling like you're wearing like bright green and yellow. Like, funny story, my dad got some gear from some players that basically they got extra stuff, some men's players, and to this day he walks around in it all the time. You would think he's a scout or a coach. Like, he used to go to my brother's games and wear full, like with the big X, Navy and all that. And I guarantee people were like, you got to play well today, Jimmy. We got Xavier out here. They're watching you. And it's my dad with his bald head in a full sweatsuit. So, yeah.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with the bald head. What can I say? Nothing wrong with the bald head.
It's that Nike gear. Shout out. It was good stuff. I still have a lot of it. Yeah.
There you go.
Good stuff.
So, you're a young pro. You said this earlier. You're a young pro. You're walking on the campus, going to class, getting food, stuff like that. And you're actually walking around other athletes who could be future pros.
Yeah.
You name a few that you're just walking at the time, they're regular playing the sport, they're circling around the campus, but then later on, you're like, that's going to be a future pro. Can you name a few of them that you went to school with?
Yeah, so I know some of them are in the G League, but like one of the main players that everyone knows that went there is like David West, and he came and played with the guys team a couple times, and we would peek in and watch them going up and down. And there is like Jalen Reynolds, I know plays overseas, and he was the guy where D Davis, the point guard, like threw it off the backboard in one of the big games, and he like smashed it. And I think like our team did so well for like an extended period of time, like on the men's side, like Elite Eight, Sweet 16, like consistently. That like JP McCura, he was I know he's like in G League and the NBA bouncing in between. Trayvon Blewett, Edmund Sumner, that was just recently with the Pacers, and then Samaje Christian when he got drafted. I think it was with OKC, and now he's overseas. But like the men's team was like, they were like, it's funny, and it's like anything, like they're just regular. Like we'd hang out with them all the time because it's just good vibes. Like I think a lot of schools, like the men's and women's basketball team, get along because we're in the training room. Like we just have similar interests and stuff, so we'd hang out with them. But then like seeing them do what they're doing now, I wasn't surprised because like our men's program was we have new coaching and stuff, but it's still like one of a very well-known schools in the Midwest. And so those are the main ones. And I think Samaje was first, but then Edmund Sumner, Trayvon, JP McCura, like those guys came out and got opportunities. And they just were in the Zip 'em Up, like the TBT tournament. That was their team, Zip 'em Up. They exited pretty early, but like I feel like if they come back and run it back, then they have a pretty good chance to get further. So I keep up with them because seeing them where they were and they were getting buckets in college and they're still doing it, you know, at the pro level, that means obviously that like the coaching staff and development is there and good. And yeah, hopefully in the future, I can say the same thing about the women's side because it's been a rebuilding program for a while. But before I came there, we had like 2008, we had some WNBA players. There were post players, but there was a point in time where that program was doing just as well or better than the men's program. And I think we'll get there. So.
All right, I like that. Okay. You know, let's go to what was supposed to be your sophomore year. You get hurt, and you know it happens in the game. It happens all the time. Talk to us about when you officially got the news about your knee. What was going on through your mind?
It was pretty soon after. I want to say like if I heard it on maybe like 3 days later, I had surgery. So I knew one thing about you get hurt out there, they got you in the US, they got you somewhere getting fixed right away. It's not like my sister tore ACL out here and she had to wait like 8 months, but this is a different thing to get surgery. But long story short, I found out pretty soon after. I knew when I injured myself that I never felt anything like that. So they're like, oh, it's a sprain. I said, this is a sprain? Then I'd be very surprised. So when he did an MRI and then the trainer sitting next to me, the doctor comes in and he's like, yeah, you have torn ACL here. Your meniscus is torn. It flipped up into your joint. So you have like a torn meniscus. I think it was my medial meniscus, like the medial side, and then my ACL. And I was like, well, I remember the night before praying and being like, man, let it be anything but my ACL. And it ended up being that. And I was like, I was fine. And my trainer was like, it's okay, you can cry if you need to. I'm like, now you're about to make me cry. Tell me I need to cry. So I think realistically, I knew the way it felt in that game. Like I honestly thought the bottom half of my leg detached from my body, like because it was just a weird twisting motion that I knew it was something that was severe. And pretty soon after I had surgery and then you start rehab. And I was like, well, this is what it was going to be. My plan was to continue playing and then hopefully after your first year, you can play for the developmental national team, which is usually college-aged women. And obviously with my torn ACL, I knew that was out of the equation. So I was like, let me see if I can get back. I want to get back. I, at this point, never really considered myself to do anything but be a professional basketball player at some point. So yeah, it happened quick and I found out the news quick and I had surgery quick. And then it was just like, all right, what's next? And that's like a mentality I try to have a lot, like, all right, this is my situation, but what's next? So let's like, what can I do now?
You know, obviously, after you were done your injury, or I shouldn't say done your injury, but when you recovered from your injury, you came back, and you transferred after your sophomore year. You transferred to Towson, but like what? For two things, two-parter. Why did you decide to transfer? But also, what was that moment like when you finally got your name called? Whether it was opening night or whatever it was, the game after your injury.
Okay. So I'm going to correct you on the timeline a bit. I graduated from Xavier, didn't play my last year. So I played my freshman year, got hurt my sophomore year. So I sat out, played my junior year, didn't play any basketball my senior year. Went home, started working at Champs, playing ball at LA Fitness. Got a call saying they're looking for a point guard from one of my old coaches at Xavier that always believed in me, but assistant coach can't really do too much. And he's like, I think you would be perfect. Was unsure, debated for a long time, made a decision, and then I went. So after about a year and a half of not playing basketball, maybe closer to 2 years, I was, like I said, I was working at Champs. I'm like, all right, this is not what I'm about to do for the rest of my life, because working at Champs in Bramley, it is what it is. But I'm just trying to condense this story. So I ended up taking a chance on a whim. I never really had the end of the career that I wanted to. So I was like, let me do this. Let me do it. And I spoke to the coaches. They again, watched film on me. They spoke highly of me, and I went. And I played for a couple games. Like you said, that first time I played and I'm starting in a game, and it was like, all right, this feels better. This feels like how my first experience was supposed to be, in terms of the first coach I went to Xavier, all the things I was talking about her speaking highly about me. She left before the season ever started. So I was basically with a coach that respected my game but didn't see how I fit into the program. And that's a situation where, knowing what I know now, I probably would have figured out a way to transfer early. But I ended up hating basketball, didn't play my last year, finished, and then I came home and people were like, why aren't you playing? And it was tough because it was like getting those questions all the time. So when the opportunity popped up, I wasn't in the greatest shape. I remember going and being in practice and being dead last in sprints, only due to the fact that it's one thing to play basketball and it's another thing to be in shape to be at a D1 program. So I got in shape, started my first game, and it was overwhelming that moment because I was like, I've been through a lot. I've overcome an injury. I've gotten back in shape, and like now I'm doing what I want to do. And eventually, again, it's not necessarily a happy ending to this story either, because my knee structurally is just not where it needs to be. So I eventually was experiencing more pain, spending a lot of time in the training room. And they gave me kind of the option to get a cortisone shot, or like I was doing a lot of pain medicine and stuff. And that's when I decided just to call it. I was like, you know what, where I saw myself being and the player that I was, I'm okay with no longer feeling like I'm that player anymore, and then wrapping it up before I just try and be a shadow of what I used to be. Right. And the way I move, like you've seen me work out a couple times, I'm really like, I like stop and go, and you need your knees for the way I like to play. So the way I transition to play, I still enjoyed, but shooting the ball more. But it's different when you know and you felt what it feels like to be able to use your body, and then it changes. It was still enjoyable, but it wasn't the same. So I wrapped it up and I said, hey, I stayed for a bit more, like in a what's it called, a graduate assistant type of position. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I think I'm just ready for the next step. And I went back home. So that is the very interesting, probably not storybook ending, but the reality of what my situation ended up turning into. I can't guarantee that if I never got hurt, if the situation would be different, but I knew that multiple reasons drew me away from basketball. I was pulled back in, but then I was able to leave it on my own terms, where it wasn't because I didn't like it anymore. It was just I was comfortable with realizing that what I wanted to give versus what my body was allowing me were two different things. And I parted peacefully. And I feel like that was like what led me to be able to be on the coaching and the training side, because I was no longer reliving glory days or like picturing myself out there. I was like, genuinely, what can I do to help people that want to walk the same path as me and want to do better than me? So, yeah.
That's a great. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was gonna say that's a great story, man. That shows, and I like the way you ended it. Like you went off on your own terms. I just wanted to just point that out. That was a lot of people don't talk about the journey and getting frustrated at basketball and being able to bounce back, doing something totally different, come back and be able to jump in the court, recognize the right position, shape, and get there and be able to play. I think that's really wonderful. It's a good story to talk about, and we need to hear more stuff of that. And finishing on your own terms, that's very key.
Yeah.
Speaking of finishing, we're actually hitting our quick hitters right now. So first thing that comes to mind, first thing that you think about, whatever you want to say. There's no right or wrong answer. This is strictly your opinion only. First one we want to ask you is, if someone wanted to make a movie on your life, who would you want to play as you?
Ooh, I've never thought about
Go, Steven.
Yeah, I don't even know. I'm not even trying to think of someone who looks like me, but just someone that's a good actress. Huh. That's a good question. I've never thought about that. Do you guys think? Can you think of anyone? I don't know.
Like you're saying, think for you or think for me? Because I can think of someone for you.
Think for me, because I don't know if I'm just drawing like a blank right now, but I feel like
Kerry Washington.
Okay, so she is a great actress, but I don't think we have the same crying face. So hopefully, there's not a bunch of crying scenes. Like famous for that. I watched Scandal. Scandal like is top tier for her crying face, but yeah, no, I think.
But you both have the same poker face, and you're both down to business. You both are very serious. You know what I mean? So
okay,
it's like,
okay.
So that's why I say Kerry Washington. But obviously, in terms of like being goofy or funny, I don't have anybody else like that. But I'm thinking more so serious, down to business. I know what I want. I know I'm gonna get. You're not gonna stop me. Kerry Washington, Kayla Davis.
Yeah, we could just leave it at that, because I've never been asked that, and I don't even think I've ever thought about that. So just for the purpose of time, we should just leave it at that. Yeah.
You're gonna make it think about that. Oh, another question. If you could relive a moment in your past that you could change or tweak, what would that be?
Am I going to be the person that says I don't have any regrets? I don't know. Because that's not a good answer. That's not clickbait worthy. What would I change? I think I would have just changed the little bit of insecurity I had as a younger, like just being shy. If what I knew now about myself and the confidence I had, if I infused that into myself at like 12, 13, 14, when I was in basketball settings, I think, and even just the mental maturity. So I would change, but that's like comes with time. But long story short, I would just give myself a long look in the mirror and tell, like, you are that girl, so you can just, feel confident in yourself. So that's what I would do. Give myself a little pep talk.
You're strong, you're smart, you're intelligent. There you go.
Yes.
If you could live debt-free, stress-free, or pain-free, which one would you choose and why?
Pain-free.
I should have known you were gonna say that, because obviously your injury, but I should have even put pain-free. But I do want to hear your answer though.
Yeah, pain-free. I still go play, but pain-free, I'm honestly thinking about trying to do a mini docu-series about me getting into like the best shape, and I don't know where I'm going to play, but find some type of league or something to play and do, because even with the pain, I still feel myself wanting to, when you're competitive and you've been in great shape, like you want to maintain that. So I'm finding different ways to do that, but like the pain-free would allow me to, sometimes it's like a lingering thing in the back of my head when I'm working out. So that's why I say that. So for sure. That's why I was debating about sticking that needle and that cortisone shot and just freeze the inside of my knee so I feel no pain on some Marvel Avengers experimental stuff. But it's not that bad. It's one of those things where you realize that for everything that I gave to basketball, that I guess is the one thing it is taking my knee cartilage. But that's fine. It's okay. You work with it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got two questions, kind of quick, two-parter. If you could play someone on one-on-one, who would it be? And if you're going to play someone 2-on-2 on a basketball game, who would be your teammate? And who would you like to play on a 2-on-2? So we'll go one-on-one first. Who would you like to square up one-on-one first?
One-on-one. One-on-one, I think I would like to play Chris Paul.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Because I think he's super crafty, and he's one of my favorite. When coaches would ask me who my favorite point guard is, I would say between him and Tony Parker, because just crafty, and know how to run a team and score the ball, do a little bit of everything. And then two
and you have
on my
and you pick
team,
one person on your team. So you got your teammate, and who you take 2-on-2?
I probably want Devin Booker on my team.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you
just
so much.
have
Also
to-
mentions
Yeah, pass the ball to him and let him work and spot up on the three, keep it simple. And then who will we play against? Obviously I'd want a favorable matchup, but just in general, I think it would be me and Devin Booker, and then like Fred Fred Van Vliet. And I'm not gonna do another Raptor. I'll do like Ja Morant.
Oh, okay.
So
all right. You got Fred, though, right?
I want to see Ja guard Devin Booker, and then I'll do my best with the boy Fred.
Hey, you got it. Hey, Kayla, you got it, man. You got it. Trust me. You Trevor and Fleet got nothing on you, man. Trevor and Fleet got nothing on you.
What he's playing lately, I think he does.
Oh, he ball out of control lately. He needs to be an all-star this year. He needs to be an all-star this year. Last question we got for you, Kayla, before we hit our outro. If you could if you could help us get anybody on Talk Your Exposure, any episode, any person in the world, if you could help us with it. No, let me reconstruct that question. Who would you like to see on Talk Your Exposure? But the kicker is you got to help us get them on.
Who would I like to see? What have been like the current people you've been bringing on? Like former Hoopers, coaches? Like what has it been?
Hoopers, coaches, managers, owners. We had Mike Morielli of the CBL. We've had Sherman Hamilton. We've had Brad Fay. We've had Cabby. We've had JYD. We've had Andrew Nicholson. We've had Alex Johnson. So people who have played before but not giving back now. But we've also had people that are in the broadcast world as well. We like to be versatile. You can never just be one.
I think either like Dwayne Notice or Ashton Smith. And those are two guys that I think.
We've been fortunate enough to have Dwayne on the show already. He gave a great show. He gave a lot of insight on his, especially on his injury and his road to recovery as well. So we like to dive into people who, if unfortunately if you get injured, we like to talk about that mental health side of it, because this podcast started during a pandemic. So, one thing we like to talk about and like to ask our guests all the time is, throughout an injury, how did you feel? What were you thinking about? What were you going through? How was it for you to get back? We have a lot of kids that listen to our podcast as well. So we want them to kind of understand, like you said earlier today, we want them to know, like, hey, if God forbid you get a Achilles injury or a knee injury and you can never walk again, or you can't explode the same way you used to be able to, what are you going to look back on? That's got to be your degree and what you go to university or college for. So, I'm kind of glad you touched up on two things today in particular that I feel is very important for these kids and people to listen to. So I'm glad that you mentioned Dwayne. We talked about it there, and we're also glad you talked about it as well. But to finish off the show, we always like to ask our guests if they have any shout outs they want to give, or if they give their social media handle as well. Where can we find you on social media?
Yeah, so mostly, honestly, just Instagram, Kayla Davis _5 or Up Next Training, and it's UPNXT training. But yeah, those are the two ones I use. You could also, I don't know if you guys know Jabs Newbie. Mm-hmm. But he's got a good story. You might have already, but all the people I know, I feel like you might have already interviewed, but I can give you guys some other ideas as well when I think of them. But yeah, Kayla Davis _5, Up Next Training. And yeah, that's hopefully I'm in the gym back soon, filming some content and getting back into, doing what I like to do. It's a little bit hard right now, but at the moment, just continuing to stay motivated like everyone else and see what's next. I think, you know, I'm gonna have some exclusives for you, maybe at a later date, so we can, you know, hop on and I'll let you guys drop an exclusive. But for now, that's all I got for you guys. It was a great interview. Really good questions. I appreciate it. It was good.
We definitely appreciate that. Kayla, thank you for your time again. You know, we can't wait to drop this episode and share the insight that you shared with us today with everybody else listening. You know, you had an incredible story. Your journey was immaculate. Why am I so off topic? I can't think properly today. I'm just all over the place. But Kayla, you know, your story. I guess I'm the old Kayla from back in the day. That's what I'm feeling right now. but although
you were smart, you was important. You got it. You did.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But no, all jokes aside, though, Kayla, we do thank you for your time. Your story was definitely great. You know, definitely it was nice to be able to dive into your basketball career and hear from you in particular. You know, it was good to be able to hear the stories and shoot, like you said, when you have any type of exclusives, you let us know. You'll get back on here and we'll definitely drop those gems together.
Okay, cool. I gotta hit up Sai so I can get in the gym and start working out and give you guys some buckets or at least participate on some when we're allowed to go up and down, get some runs in.
Yeah, here we go, trying to give us some buckets. Here we go. She had to finish off with talking some ish. She had to finish off with talking some ish. You see it?
You're right.
I like her demeanor. Her demeanor is the best for that. It's her demeanor.
I'm serious.
She's dead ass, Chris. She's dead serious. She's like, but that's the thing with her. She'll look you dead in your eye and be like, I'm gonna kill you on the court. You'll think she's joking, but I'm dead ass gonna kill you on the court. And I'm like,
I can see it.
I try to give her some a very, very quick story before we really do conclude. I try to give her some tips on shooting when she was working out, and she looked at me. She said, "Okay." Did the exact same thing again. No smile, no nothing, just straight face. Okay, I went right back to it. Ended up like, okay, well, clearly I'm not gonna help you anymore.
Man, that's the thing. Sometimes it's like. I remember too, it was probably something to do with, and I think at that point, okay, what we're going to do, just to summarize this. I don't know how much time I need, but like I said, I'm really playing with the idea of doing some Will Smith, like get my life together, like on some real, get in the best shape of my life. And then we'll do a workout and then we'll see what you say. Cause that wasn't my best, but you know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that. So give me some time. We'll get back in the gym and then I'll take as many pointers as possible. Cause I need to be coached up. I need to be coached up. But yeah, we'll do that. Just give me probably like 3 or 4 months.
All right.
Record.
Yeah.
Hey, on record of Talker Exposure, I'm gonna drop this part of the segment. Kayla Davis said she needs 3 to 4 months to get back into shape. 3 to 4 months to get back into shape. I'm gonna drop that.
Basketball shit, yeah. Yep.
But yeah, one last time again, that's a wrap for today for Talker Exposure. No, I appreciate you for your time, Kayla, and wish you the best in the moving forward.